Hello, and thank you for joining me on my presentation of libraries and copyright. Today, we're going to be talking about ebooks and lending licenses. To begin this presentation, we are going to talk about the question, what is copyright? So copyright protects the works of an individual from unauthorized uses. It covers all types of works such as artworks, books, music, and films. It's important to note that copyright does not apply to ideas, history, historical facts, or processes. Now you may ask yourself, why do people copyright their works in the first place? Isn't it beneficial to have everything as fair use? Shouldn't someone be able to use pieces of work for educational, creative, or personal purposes? Well, we're going to talk about that in the next slide, with three major reasons why people pursue copyright. The three reasons that creators copyright their works are: number one, legal proof of ownership; number two, a public record of ownership; and number three, the eligibility to sue for infringement. So the question is, how does copyright affect libraries? Copyright affects libraries through the dissemination of information and media. It restricts and allows certain works to be available to our patrons. And it also affects what patrons can and cannot check out. In the rest of this presentation, we're going to be talking specifically about copyright in the terms of ebooks and lending licenses. We will discuss how lending licenses can impact libraries, budgets, and patron privacy. In order to understand how our patrons use ebooks and digital media, we must understand how it has skyrocketed over the last few years. So there's been a huge growth of patrons using digital media since the COVID-19 pandemic. The budget for digital materials has been needed to increase due to this high demand, and yet we see that the budget has increased incrementally. Lastly, we need to understand that there are different vendors and publishers that have different time frames, terms, and monetary concerns when it comes to lending licenses and libraries. When looking at the increase of usage of ebooks and other digital media, we must ask reasons why people are using online materials versus physical materials. So there's a few reasons for that we will talk about here. Firstly, a lot of books are being banned or censored all around the country. And unfortunately, sometimes librarians can have a tendency to self-censorship, which means that they do not order certain books for fear of backlash. Yet, these books may be available as ebooks or audiobooks. So some patrons may turn to digital formats due to these reasons. The second one is ease of access. A lot of ebooks are available for reading on a device such as a mobile phone, a laptop, a tablet, or a Kindle. These make it a lot easier to just stay home and download the book straight to your device. The third one is the local branch not meeting certain needs. For example, any LGBTQIA plus patrons may not feel that their needs are being met within a specific branch or library system, and that they find these books through other digital forms such as Hoopla, Libby, or Overdrive. Lack of transportation is another reason that people may use digital materials versus physical materials. Disability or homebound patrons. And lastly, privacy. When you check out a book at the library, your first and last name is used, and while the library really tries hard to maintain patron privacy and only gathers data that is necessary for creating a library account, still some people may be worried about lack of privacy. Now that we have talked about the overall atmosphere of digital media in libraries, as well as reasons why patrons may prefer online materials versus physical materials, we are going to be talking about how these online materials, like ebooks, get into a library system's ecosystem. So, the process from conception of an author's mind to the patron's hand all begins with the author or the creator of the work in question. So, the author originally creates the idea, and once the idea is written down, it is automatically copyright. Then the author will sell their work to a publisher. Next, the publisher will reach out to a vendor or distributor such as Amazon, Overdrive, Hoopla, Libby, Boundless, just to name a few. After that, the distributors and vendors will reach out to the library systems and talk to them about their sales, their budgets, what they can do and what they cannot do. And once the library agrees to those terms, including timelines, budgets, and other restrictions, that's when the library is able to get the ebooks and then put them into the library ecosystem for the reader to check out and ultimately read on their own devices. Now we're going to cover the breakdown of different lending licenses. So as you can see on the chart, we're going to be talking about license type, description, expiration, and vendors or publishers that abide by the model. So, one copy, one use. This means libraries purchase one copy and distribute it once, similar to a physical copy. So for example, one copy, I have one copy of Goodnight Moon, and once a patron checks out that one copy of Goodnight Moon, the next patron has to wait for that copy to come back to the library. This type of lending license has no expiration or no time frame. And we have thousands of publishers who abide by this model. Next, we have metered access, which is another form of one copy, one use. So this one is similar to the one we just spoke about, with one item being checked out, and that's it. But this one is a little bit different because it has a timeline. So the item must be repurchased by the library after a given amount of time. An example is 32 months, or it could be 32 checkouts. Now this varies on the vendor and publishers. Vendors and publishers that abide by this model are the Big Five: Lerner, Rosin, Blackstone, Scholastic, Capstone, and RB Media. Next, we have metered access. So this is not just one copy, one use. It is a bundle or a gathering of loans or items, digital media. For example, it could be 200 titles that can be used at the same time. This has no expiration, and publishers and vendors that use it are RB Media, Open Road Media, Lerner Publishing, Dreamscape Media, Independent Publishers Group, Planeta, and Springer. Second to last, we have a simultaneous use. So this is a concurrent use for a single title for a period of time. So for example, many people can check out a popular book as long as it is within the specific time frame that the vendor or publisher deems necessary. We have people who abide by this are All Access Comics, Overdrive Magazines, Learner Publishing, Britannica, Digital Learning, Lonely Planet, IPG, and Open Road Media. Lastly, we have cost per checkout. So this one is definitely not cost effective for libraries because it means that the library is going to be charged for every checkout. So we as a library system cannot track if a patron is reading the items that they're checking out. So whether they read the item or they don't, the library is charged. There's no timeline on this, and people who abide by it are Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Kobo Writing Life, Chronicle Books, Kensington, Source Books, Harlequin, and W.W. Norton. Now that we have a familiarity with different types of lending licenses and their models, we are going to be talking about potential issues arising within a digital media sphere. And these include issues such as budget, access, specifically Audible and Amazon access, privacy concerns, and other attempts at copyright infringement. The A issue. So, not all vendors are considered library friendly. And what it means to be library friendly is meaning that they are providing access for library patrons to their titles on a understandable budget and equitable access. But the A issue is that Amazon and Audible are two vendors that are notoriously unfriendly towards libraries. This means they monopolize the market on certain ebooks or audiobooks. Oftentimes, certain titles available on, for example, Amazon's Kindle Unlimited are totally unavailable to library patrons and only available on the Amazon Kindle Unlimited platform behind a membership paywall. And the same is true for Audible and their audiobooks. So we have covered how patrons are using digital media, why patrons are using digital media, different types of lending licenses and their models, potential issues of digital media and ebooks in the future, the A issue, and now we're going to talk about how libraries are protected by the Constitution, the copyright policy, as well as the Fair Use Act. So there are certain sections, such as Section 108D and E, that allow library workers to make and distribute copies of works. Section 108C allows libraries to make 3 copies of a work if the original piece was damaged or lost. In Section 121, some libraries can make or distribute copies of works in accessible forms, such as Braille or other audio formats. And these are really important to note because it can be helpful when you're trying to help a patron with a research project or a book project or anything like that. Now we know that libraries are protected by copyright policy, the Fair Use Act, as well as other areas in the Constitution. So right now we're going to talk about fair use in the library. So libraries can use the Fair Use Act to disseminate ebooks to their patrons. According to the Copyright Alliance, fair use is an affirmative defense that can be raised in response to claims by a copyright owner that a person is infringing a copyright. Fair use permits a party to use a copyrighted work without the copyright owner's permission for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. So, if you are wondering if what you are doing is covered by the Fair Use Act, there are a few questions that we can use and break down the answer to that. Number 1, why are we using the content? Why are we using the ebook? Why are we using the passage? Why are we using the story? And how are we using the material? Is the copyrighted work more creative or is it more informational? And Hint, hint, informational or factual use is more likely to be abided by fair use claim. Number 3, what is the amount of times you are using the works? And number 4, what is the effect of use on the market? Now, these are just really good questions to have a jumping off point if you're ever concerned about the items that you are using within your professional role. A few slides ago, we talked about how an arising issue is how we handle patron privacy. And as we know, libraries really try hard to protect a patron's privacy. But if they are using things such as Amazon, we're not too sure how that reading and personal information is being tracked. That's when the digital rights management comes in. So, this is a system that ensures that content or media is protected from misuse or unauthorized access. According to Legal City, the digital rights management system is an extension of existing human rights for the online world. The system recognizes that individuals are privy to digital privacy, autonomy, and dignity. The system came to fruition through a combination of national legislation, international human rights law, and other protections provided by the Constitution. We have talked quite a bit in this presentation about a general sense of ebooks, digital media, and libraries. So, what is the future of ebook licenses and libraries? Well, let's talk about it. So, we have a few points that we want to keep in mind. And that is budget reconsiderations, increase of use of digital collections, to be aware of that, to be aware of what your patrons are utilizing and which platforms they're utilizing. We are thinking about finding alternatives to vendor or publisher restrictions. For example, if we cannot provide a title through our digital library because of Amazon, Audible, or other copyright issues, how else can we serve our patrons? Possibly through interlibrary loans, ILL. Next, a way that we can think about the future of ebook licenses and libraries is through the promotion of digital library by staff. So a lot of people don't actually realize that we have a lot of the platforms that we do. Somebody may be aware of Boundless, but not aware of Libby. And we want to really push our digital access for our patrons. We need to be aware of adding additional materials to the online catalog and really serving the patrons and seeing what we have physically and how we can add more to boost our digital catalog. And lastly, we're going to be staying up to date on vendor opportunities. In conclusion, we must abide by the American Library Association and their mission of library services and collection materials for themselves and the library system as a whole. And their mission is to provide information and equitable access to resources. Their core values are access, equity, intellectual freedom and privacy, public good, and sustainability. These core values should be reflected in the collections and services of all libraries, regardless of ebook licensing or vendor or publisher restrictions. Vendors and publishers of digital materials may disregard these values and missions by charging a higher premium to libraries or, as we see with Amazon and Audible, even monopolize access to certain works. It is important for librarians to know how digital materials become available to the patron and know how to process or how the process can hinder or assist within the library's value system. Thank you for joining me in my presentation on ebooks and lending licenses. Hopefully, you have learned a little something about digital media and our patrons. Please reference the overview paperwork, myself, or any other additional references included in this slideshow for further questions or